This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek a medical professional or healthcare provider if you're seeking any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks, everyone. Happy 50th episode. Okay, we're gonna ching so that everyone can hear.
Yes.
We're so happy. We are on our 50th episode. It's crazy.
I know. It's mind-boggling how we made it, but we made it.
I know.
Cheers.
I know. It's been less than a year and we're on our 50th episode. And honestly, thank you guys for keeping us going. We've gotten such great feedback throughout the year. It hasn't been 1 year yet, or 1 year hasn't come up yet, but it's close.
Coming up in June.
Yeah. But thank you guys for tuning in. I love getting feedback from everyone.
We started this totally just for funsies, and you guys are just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have made this an actual thing, and it helps us even stay accountable. Like, we want to keep doing this, and we stay on top of it and not missing an episode.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, we haven't even had to miss an episode yet, just because you guys are so awesome. You know, especially you guys on Threads too.
Yeah, I know. Everyone has been honestly everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Instagram, Threads, Facebook, you got Twitter now. We're getting some following in Twitter. So
this episode, we are drinking our champagne to celebrate. And,
in case you guys are not watching, those of you that are not watching, but yeah.
And Jules, what are we talking about today?
Well, I mean, for the 50th.
We wanted to do something trendy, something that everyone was talking about.
To it because, it does deserve to, have some light shed on it. So we'll
and I feel like everyone at some point has had some sort of interaction with this medication.
100%.
The medication that a lot of people take, sometimes because they need it, sometimes for funsies.
Exactly, for funsies, or because you need to get you over, that, how do you call that? Like in college or any type of graduate school, medical school, name one. Yeah. It's Adderall. We're talking about
Adderall, everyone. For those of everyone watching, we are filming from my place today.
We're at Evie's house today because my house is just way too full today.
Welcome.
And her house is lovely. So we're like, let's switch it up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Jules.
Yes.
Have you ever had any experience with Adderall? Has anyone in your family ever taken it?
Nobody in my family that I know of.
Friends
have taken it, but yes, friends. For sure. I've seen, at least when I was in undergrad, for sure. Especially when tests would hit and stuff like that, I would see a lot of my friends on it. I never took it because I'm scared of it. Because as it is, I'm a very not hyperactive per se, but I have trouble sleeping and everything, and I don't really have a problem focusing. Yeah. So it's I never really saw the draw for me, at least. So there was that.
No, it could definitely affect your sleep for sure.
Yeah, and then I saw how it affected
other people
around me that didn't need to take it, but they would take it, and I'm maybe not for me.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because it's not just Adderall. There's other ones that are very similar. So Concerta, Ritalin, all those other ones. So, but today we're just mainly focusing on Adderall abuse. Okay. The abuse part of it. So just a little disclaimer here. We're talking about Adderall abuse, right? Not Adderall use when you actually need it. Okay.
Because you do need it sometimes.
Yes. So I always say this medication is really necessary for some people.
Absolutely.
And they cannot function without it. And it's not because they are somehow addicted or anything. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's that they actually do need it the same way as a person with high blood pressure needs blood pressure medication.
Exactly.
So, but today we are going to focus on the Adderall abuse side of it because that's what seems to be trending. And I'm happy. I can't talk today.
It's okay.
I'm happy that we're talking about it because it is something that you know, people
It needs
may
to be
take
talked
it
about a little
incorrectly.
more. Yeah, absolutely. And it should be talked about a little more. That's for sure. Because like you said, people sometimes just take it and they don't even know how serious it could be if you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So,
or the side effects.
yeah.
So
there's a lot. There's a lot to it, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people take it as ingest, like very lightly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, there's a lot of sides to it. So
Yeah.
anyway, what's Adderall?
All right. So Adderall is a prescription medication that we doctors give to people who have certain medical conditions. Mainly, the most common one is ADHD. If you don't know what ADHD is, tune into our ADHD episode. Also, narcolepsy can be a very common one that people take this medication for. And again, narcolepsy, it's a sleep disorder that causes excessive daytime sleepiness. Have we ever had an episode with
Not a narcolepsy.
Okay.
We've mentioned it.
We've mentioned it in our sleep episodes. Yeah. So Adderall, it's made up of 2 different ingredients, amphetamine, okay, and then dextroamphetamine, which are both stimulants that affect the brain. So when we take these medications, it helps control our behaviors, our attention, and how awake someone feels.
Yeah.
Okay. So for someone with ADHD, Adderall can actually really help them focus better. They pay attention for longer periods of time. They're less impulsive, less hyperactive. So I feel like that is mostly the reason why I have patients on Adderall. It's not so much that they can't stay awake. It's just they are easily distracted.
Yeah.
So when they take these medications, it really helps them just focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah. How I kind of see it, like the analogy is like if you're driving, you're in a car, and then instead of having to pick all these lanes, it just focuses on one lane. Like it helps your mind just stay focused on one lane versus all these things at the same time happening in your head, at least.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's exactly how it is.
At least if you're a visual person like me.
Yeah, and then some people ask, well, how does that go with like learning? So the thing is that if you are focused on a million things at one time, you're actually not focused on anything.
Exactly.
Because you have so many things that you're thinking about all at the same time. So what happens is that a lot of the common complaints that I get is that it's like memory. They don't remember anything.
Yeah, and how could you? I mean,
yeah, and that could be a learning disorder, that could be ADHD. Why? Because if you're not focused on what you're doing, then 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes down the line, you ask yourself, oh, what did I just... Has it ever happened to you where you read a paragraph 100%. And you're like, what did I just read?
100%.
Yeah. So that can happen.
Yeah.
So people with narcolepsy can actually benefit from Adderall because it helps them stay awake. Obviously, it's a stimulant. You're going to stay awake. Okay. Yeah. So, however, it's important to use Adderall only if a doctor prescribes it because it can be harmful if you take it without medical supervision. Again, everything has a side effect, right?
Yep.
So if you take this medication and you are not aware of the side effects that it can give you, then it could be dangerous.
Yep.
So it can cause side effects such as trouble sleeping, like what we were just talking about with you, since you were like kind of nervous about taking it.
Yeah.
You can feel anxious. Again, it's a stimulant, so you're going to feel anxious. So maybe people with anxiety shouldn't really be taking it.
Another reason why I was like, no.
I actually have a lot of kiddos that when they start taking Adderall, they start developing tics. So it's not recommended for people with tic disorder. So it's just a lot of things that you need to know. People like maybe with heart conditions shouldn't be taking stimulants.
Makes sense, yeah.
So again, another side effect can be fast heartbeat. So you can have a little bit of tachycardia. And then, weight loss, appetite suppression, all those things can happen and it could be serious.
Yeah.
So Adderall is also a controlled substance. So they're really bogging down on this whole entire Adderall use because for a moment there, it really was just being handed out very freely.
Yeah.
So it does have the potential to be misused or become addictive if not taken as directed by a doctor.
Right.
And
I did see that too.
Yeah.
I saw people totally
100%.
addicted on it, that they couldn't, back to when I was an undergrad, like that they couldn't really study without it at that point. And that was scary to me. I'm like, how am I going to like rely on that for the rest of my life like that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and there's definitely people that take it for sure for certain situations.
Yeah.
And then there's, sorry. champagne bubbles.
Yeah, got it.
So that's why there's strict rules about how it's prescribed and how you should be taking it. Okay. So, all right, Jules, let's start diving into the abuse part of it.
So now that she described what it is that we're talking about, so the abuse about it. The current issue of Adderall abuse is complex, as you could imagine, because it's involving overprescription and misuse by like people that actually need it, such as people with ADHD, narcolepsy, other diseases that actually require it. And it's in a significant rise in recreational use among various populations, including students. Yep. So this abuse is compounded by the drug stimulant properties, which can lead to dependency and serious health risks. So Adderall has seen a dramatic rise in prescriptions. This increase is partly due to the broadening of diagnostic criteria and the ease of obtaining prescriptions, especially through telehealth services, which surged during the pandemic. The drug stimulant effects, similar to those of cocaine, make it a target for misuse. People without ADHD might misuse Adderall to enhance concentration, motivation, or endurance, leading to euphoric effects, but also increasing the risk of cardiovascular issues and other health problems that Evie had mentioned earlier.
All right. So recreational use and dependence. So recreationally, Adderall is often used by students, young adults to kind of boost their academic performance and manage the demands of education and work. So, sometimes it's really hard. You have these students that are studying 14, 15 hours a day straight.
Yeah.
And it's not that they can't focus. They can focus, but I mean, it's really hard to focus for like 14, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
And it's so much pressure on them. So they use it to help them kind of get through it. Yeah. So sometimes it's not just for the partying. Sometimes these people use it because they really feel like they need the help academically.
Yep. Yeah. Like you said, the pressure.
The pressure is crazy.
Yeah, to perform.
So a study indicated that 1 in 4 middle and high school students with ADHD are misusing their prescribed stimulants like Adderall, often to enhance academic performance or cope with educational pressures.
Yeah.
So this misuse can lead to a false sense of capability and potentially worsen the academic performance over time. So moreover, the euphoria and the increased wakefulness provided by Adderall makes it appealing, but these effects can often lead to a cycle of dependence and addiction, particularly when used in ways that's not prescribed by a healthcare provider. So, this study there's really a lot of truth to it. I had a patient come in. It was a young boy and his mom, and they were kind of it was a first time visit. I was kind of like seeing this patient almost as a favor. So whatever. So I interviewed the patient. I'm like, what's going on? And they tell me that he had a previous use of Adderall because of his ADHD, but he ended up getting through school pretty well, but, started having, again, a decline in his academic performance. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know and don't have this experience, the amount of time that you need to wait to see a neurologist is insane.
At least here in this town.
At least
here.
I can only speak on Miami.
Yeah.
But here in Miami, the other day I saw an appointment for a patient because sometimes I can see the appointments that they have depending if we share the same system. The patient did not have an appointment for a year from today's date. A year to see a neurologist.
And the thing is that, especially for child neurology.
Yeah, I can't speak on adult neurology. I'm just saying pediatric neurology.
There's even less of them out there. So it's even harder to get an appointment with the few.
So, and this has nothing to do with like, well, sometimes if a physician calls the other physician, they'll squeeze them in. Nope.
No, because
I've had more serious. I don't call for those kind of favors, especially for these kind of situations. I only call for that when there's like an emergency or something, that really needs to be evaluated. Yeah. But no, it doesn't work that way. And we're talking about sometimes not even to see the neurologist, sometimes to see their nurse practitioner or their physician assistant. So they still need to wait.
Yeah.
So this mom had this situation where she wasn't able to see their neurologist to have this medication prescribed. And again, as a general pediatrician, I can prescribe these medications. So, I started asking him his questions to see if he really needed it or not. And then it came down to his questioning. I was like, okay, well, like, what do your grades look like? And then he's like, well, I get B's. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so the mom obviously sees that I'm confused, right? And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm like, Mom, what about at home? Like at home, I want to see like, what are the two environments that he's in? How's he acting? I'm like, what about at home? I start asking her the questions about home life and what he does at home. And then I was like, no, there's really no problems at home. It's only at school. And I'm like, this isn't really sounding like he really needs to be on this medication.
Right.
And then so I told her that.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, the thing is that in order for him to stay at this school, he needs to have a certain GPA. And they are threatening to kick him out. And I cannot have that because his sister is in that same school. And if he leaves, then I would have to, I cannot put them in two different schools. So this person wanted to boost his kids' performance for the sake of not separating between schools. And again, I'm not talking about any judgment. Okay, there's no judgment here. I'm just saying, is it really necessary?
Exactly.
And it can sound judgmental, but that's not the way I'm coming across. But at the end of the day, so I kind of just told her, I was like, that's just not a reason for me to prescribe this medication for your son. It just truly, the benefit of it does not outweigh the risk for me.
And that's your job.
And that's my job.
Exactly.
So you can imagine she was very upset.
I could only imagine.
And I get it. Like, I'm not here trying to say that it is not difficult to have two kids in two different schools, him maybe not performing as well. And I don't doubt that the Adderall was going to probably help him. But what, to go from a B to a B plus, maybe an E minus, I don't, what?
Yeah.
But then have like other side effects? No, it's just not enough for me.
There is a huge trend, at least here in Miami, of the competitiveness in these schools. And we're not even talking about like college or anything like that. We're talking about starting from, I'm telling you from my experience, my kiddo is not even in kindergarten.
Yeah.
He's in PK4.
Yeah.
And he's already having to perform.
Yep.
I'm like, what world are we living in?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, and that's why you get these cases.
Yeah, something very interesting.
Because it's like, we have to. It's like the competitiveness, and then the parents get involved, and then it's like, oh my God, my child he's not going to make it to whatever X, Y, and Z school, whatever it is.
It's a very big thing here. The schools and all of that. There's trendy schools and kids that they should be going to, and then not be going to, and then it's all a lot of social pressure.
Yeah, it's huge, and then it's like we live in a very, unfortunately, Miami, whatever, fortunately or unfortunately, I see it as unfortunate, but here in Miami, it's very superficial. It's like a lot like LA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So schools are kind of viewed in that aspect too. Like, oh, my kid goes to whatever. My kid goes to whatever. And there's a lot of BS that comes with that.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, these schools that have this reputation of being top school or whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they require their students to meet these really competitive scores.
Yep.
And then the parents are like, well, you need to stay in the school or you need to go to the school or whatever. So it's vicious. Like it really is vicious, but it's part of where this is coming from and why it's trending and it's becoming more prevalent these days,
Yeah. And I also feel like it's what happened to the old way of doing things, which I do feel like in other countries, they really do put more attention to the change in the environment.
Yes.
So what about, instead of these medications, what about more time on tests? What about separating the child so that they're not as easily distracted? What about tutoring?
Yeah. That's what we ended up doing with MR.
And a lot of places just aren't set up to answer those questions for parents.
Yep.
A lot of parents come to me and they're like, have you tried this? No, I didn't really know. And I'm just like, where is the effort?
Yeah. A lot of schools like to bypass.
Not all schools are like this, by the way.
No. Not all of them. But a lot of them, they like to bypass that and just be like, you know what? Maybe they should just go on Adderall.
Yes, and because they see other children. I have no doubt that they see other children that truly have ADHD and really benefit. So they're saying in their minds, I'm sure that it's not like from any malintent or anything like that. I'm sure that they're just like, well, no, if it helped this kid, then I'm sure it could help this kid.
It could be beneficial to this kid too. Yeah,
and they're not medical professionals, so they don't know the side effects. They're just like a medicine that can help a kid do better in school.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So it's hard. And again, it goes back to parenting is hard. So,
Yeah, parenting is really hard. Teaching is really hard for the love of God.
Incredibly hard.
I don't know how you do it. God bless your souls.
Yeah.
You don't get paid enough.
No,
yeah,
not nearly enough. The fact that you have, and then there are these teachers that they teach these little children or whatever children
Talk about pressure
all day. And then they go home to parents, their kids.
Parents, their kids, yeah.
They're little kids too, because a lot of them have little kids, at least the ones that I know. Little kids. Yep. I'm like, how do you do this every day?
Every single day at all hours of the day. Oh, and they do not get paid. They do not get vacation.
Oh, no.
Maternity leave, they do not get.
Paternity.
So just remember when you're talking to your kids' teachers, they're working. Mm-hmm. However, that doesn't mean that they should be making recommendations.
Yeah.
When it's maybe not there yet.
Yeah.
So, all right. So health risks and, just the dark side of things associated with addiction. So the health risk associated with Adderall misuse is pretty significant.
Yeah.
People that don't have ADHD or don't have any reason to be using this, the misuse can lead to serious heart conditions, so cardiovascular problems and psychological issues and anxiety and restlessness and irritable bowel disease, just all these things that you can have from taking these medications and most likely probably taking more than what you even need.
Yeah,
and the drug works by increasing dopamine levels in the brain. So it can disrupt the normal brain function. You can have decreased sensitivity to natural rewards and increased stress. So basically, something right now, we get a dopamine, like a little dopamine rush when we have something that's like a reward. So it hits the reward center, dopamine rush, we feel great, right? Yeah. So if you're taking a medicine that is constantly doing that anyways, things that used to give you that reward, it's somehow like blunted.
Yeah.
So it's not as rewarding anymore.
Yeah, that's rough.
And at the end of the day, this alteration in brain chemistry can really exacerbate the negative side of it. Yeah. So you can experience negative emotional states, reinforce the cycles of dependence. And then when you don't have these medicines, because again, these people are most likely getting it from somewhere else. Of course. Right? Yeah. If we're not getting it prescribed, okay? Yeah. But when you are off these medicines, then you're super irritable and you're just not a happy person.
You're kind of in that state of withdrawal.
Yeah.
So that's rough. That's real rough. And it's dangerous too. Being in withdrawal from any of these meds that interact with your brain chemistry is really, really, really dangerous. That's why they say, you could delve more into this, but those people that are taking like SSRIs, SNRIs, antidepressant meds, you can't just cold turkey get off of them. They're really dangerous to do that. You have to like taper off of them little by little because they work with your brain chemistry. So then this drug, it does the same thing. So you can't just like
take it one day, take it off, take it another day, take it off.
You can't just do that, which is one of the reasons why this is so dangerous too. But anyway, so the regulatory landscape is also a factor because the increased scrutiny in telehealth prescriptions and the needs for better controls to prevent overprescription and misuse. That is a problem that we're encountering. Like I had earlier said, since COVID, telehealth has become a lot more in use and many... For those of you that are just listening, I keep on with the thumbs up happening, and I don't know how it gets triggered.
We don't know how it does it.
It just randomly
does it. Triggers it.
And it just did it now. Anyways, so that's a new avenue that is yet to be explored and how to deal with it. But since COVID, a lot of telehealth has been used for a lot of practices, and one of them that was really, really highly used was for like therapy and psychiatry and all that. So this Adderall started getting like an uptick in prescribing, and this is a whole new problem to deal with now. So then the recent shortages of Adderall have further complicated the issue, affecting legitimate patients who rely on the medication for daily functioning. And if you didn't know, or if you're out of the US, we have a lot of shortages and a lot of meds these days. Ever since COVID, for some reason, we're talking about like important medications too, like diabetes medications and all that. Huge problem with shortages.
And here, the Adderall, and then such a shortage with it.
That's what I'm saying. And then like just across the board, you'll see a lot of medications.
People driving 4 hours to go get their medicine.
Yep. And ever since COVID, the supply changes have just been all over the place. And right now, what we're seeing is, unfortunately, shortages in all these medications. And then when you're talking about Adderall, it's like crap.
Yep.
Like you can't just not have that medication, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
So effects.
Yeah. So effects of Adderall abuse. So we'll talk first about short term. So things that you're going to see a little bit more immediately and maybe not lasting.
Yeah.
So short term includes physical and psychological impacts. So physically, abusing Adderall can lead to increased body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure changes. It can strain the body and potentially lead to health complications, to weight loss. It can decrease your appetite, give you like nausea all the time.
People have taken it for weight loss.
Oh yeah. There's also that potential abuse too.
Yeah, I doing this research, I'm like, I didn't even know.
Yeah, you can have that. Yep. And then you can have physical exhaustion. So again, your brain is stimulated the whole entire day. So you will crash, and the crash is hard.
Yeah.
And then dehydration. So then, hold on, I'm just going to piggyback off of that. So you crash, but what if that person is just not ready yet? Like they still need more, right? So they take more Adderall, and it's just like, it's
a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So you can get dehydrated from it. You can have insomnia just because it is a stimulant. It can affect your sleep cycle. You're just crazy energy expenditure. And again, I already mentioned the appetite situation. So then you have low appetite. You're not really eating well. So it's just like completely off balance when you really abuse this medication. Mm-hmm. You can have intense periods of paranoia. So like I said, like you can get really irritable, you can have paranoia, you can have like social isolation just because you just don't want to deal with other people. You just want to be on your own. You're like focused, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not focused on people, you're focused on whatever you want to be doing.
Right.
And then also just because you can get really irritable when this is abused, you can have just problems in your social life in general.
Right.
So psychologically, short-term abuse of Adderall can cause, again, like I said, irritability, anxiety, mood swings. Some people even have manic episodes. That really just depends, especially if they already have a mental history. So a mental health history. The stimulant properties of this drug can also make individuals feel on edge and easily agitated, almost like how people can see with cocaine use.
Right, yeah.
So you get very aggressive and all of those things.
And again, this is if you
abuse it.
Not for people that actually need it.
But hold on a second, it can happen. So these are things that we should be warning people on, just because, and that's why there's such close follow-up with these type of medications, and that's why they're controlled substances.
Right.
Because I can have a parent come back to me and say, listen,
this was awful.
This was awful. And I'm like, okay, not for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for them. Let's switch it up. There's other things that I can use for ADHD that are not stimulants.
Right.
So, but it is things that people need to be aware of, but especially if there's an abuse going on.
Well, you're right, because a lot of people view Adderall as like an all good, everything's good. As soon as you prescribe it, it's just going to help you focus. Just a good side of it.
Yeah.
But I've rarely heard of somebody, like a friend of mine or somebody that I know, talk about Adderall with the negative side effects of it.
Well, so that's why at least me, again, in the general population, they're probably not going to see this, but at least like in practitioners, or what we should be doing, okay, is you follow them up in about 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. How's it going? Are you having this? Are you having that? I'm constantly checking the growth charts. Are they losing weight? Are they not? Like, ask about these questions. A lot of parents don't know what to tell you if you're not asking the right questions.
That's true, yeah.
So,
or they may have not even realized it.
They may not realize it, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I ask them a question and they look back and they're like, man, you're right. I didn't think about that, but she has been eating less.
Right.
So, So anyways, so you can have conflicts and with your personal and professional relationships. Additionally, the impacts on the brain's neurotransmitters can lead to rapid mood swings, against causing intense highs and your lows. And it can be really exhausting and really overwhelming for the person.
Yeah.
Other common side effects include headaches. Okay, that's a huge one. Shaking. Okay, just because, again, it's a stimulant.
Yeah.
You're going to probably have a little bit of shakes. Okay. Changes in your sexual history. Again, you could be blunted with that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's messing with your brain chemistry.
Yeah. Nausea, vomiting. I mean,
who
wants to do any of that with that? So,
yeah.
And again, just because you do have weight loss and you are having a stimulant, if you're not eating right, you're going to have some sort of malnutrition. You can have irritable bowel syndromes, so like diarrhea, constipation. It just really depends. Again, we are changing your brain chemistry. Mental health side effects can include hallucinations, delusions. You can have serious but less common side effects such as pounding, fast heartbeats, chest pain, feeling faint or dizzy. And truly, like, yeah, these are rare, but it can happen. You know, this isn't like, oh, yeah, that's really rare. It's probably not from that. No, like if someone comes in with chest pain and they tell me that they're on a stimulant, I'm like, okay, well, how much are you taking? Did you change the dose? So like, I'm going to dive deeper into that history.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a benign drug.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Numbness in the arms, legs, slowed speech. I mean,
think about it, you know, it's probably listed.
It's probably listed. Exactly. Twitches, like I said, tics. A lot of patients that I've had that they have tics come up. And then long-term effects of Adderall abuse can lead to just, again, these symptoms, they short-term, imagine if you have all of this and then it just keeps on going, right?
Yeah.
So this can all become chronic, okay?
Right.
And then Jules will touch on some of the long-term health benefits or health. Jules will touch on the long-term effects of Adderall abuse.
Exactly. So like she said, these could become chronic, and that's a problem because we're talking about here like cardiovascular issues. So Adderall abuse can lead to serious cardiovascular issues, including high blood pressure, rapid heart rate, which is tachycardia, and increased risk of heart attack and stroke because, again, it's a stimulant. It's made for that. So these conditions arise from the drug's stimulant properties, which elevate the heart rate and blood pressure over prolonged periods of time. Then neurological effects. Heavy and prolonged use of Adderall can lead to neurological damage. Again, as we've said a million times in this episode, it changes your brain chemistry. So of course, if you are using this heavily and for a long amount of time, that change in brain chemistry is going to lead to a change in your brain permanently. Neurological damage that can include changes in the brain structure and the function of it. And it can be manifested by decreased cognitive abilities, memory problems, and difficulty with concentration and focus, like pretty much what you started even using it for, possibly.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you have physical dependence and withdrawal, as I had briefly mentioned about withdrawal being a dangerous problem. So long-term use can lead to the physical dependence where the body requires a drug to actually just function normally. And then the withdrawal symptoms can be severe, and they can include fatigue, depression, and changes in your sleep patterns. So I don't know. It's scary. Like to me, it's just,
I mean, if you have all these symptoms short term and you just keep on having these symptoms, at some point there will be future problems.
Yeah, they'll become permanent.
Exactly. Chronic.
Exactly.
All right. So mental health effects. Okay. So we're going to talk about long-term effects of Adderall abuse, but the mental health side of things.
Yeah.
So psychosis and other psychiatric symptoms. This is something that I feel like will happen if there's a lot of abuse going on. Mm-hmm. So it's not just you take one Adderall and you're going to have these side effects. Right. So I don't want to like instill fear on someone that maybe is considering taking these medications for a real reason.
No, again, like you said, it's long-term abuse of it.
Yeah. Exactly. So an extended abuse of Adderall can lead to symptoms such as psychosis, paranoia, hallucinations, delusional thinking. Some even people have seen schizophrenia, okay?
Yeah.
And take into account, okay, so this is like hyphen or parentheses, this may also be more common in someone that already has a mental health history, okay? So you can also have anxiety and depression. And again, you're taking a stimulant. This can exacerbate anxiety for a really long time, can actually bring on depressive symptoms. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just be aware of that. Addiction. Okay. Adderall it's highly addictive.
It's dopamine. It's messing with your dopamine. How could
this is an addictive medication.
Yeah.
So the long-term use of it can kind of create maybe a substance use disorder. And again, this is if you're not taking the right dose, if you're taking more than what you should be taking,
which can happen if you're taking it illicitly, because you're not being directed by somebody that actually knows.
And then the addiction can also dominate your life, so leading to neglect of personal, professional, and social responsibilities. So those are all long-term effects when it comes to the addiction side of it. And again, kind of like we already said, the emotional and behavioral changes. You can have mood swings, you can have irritability, aggression, like kind of we already talked about. So again, those are all long-term things. So the short term can become the long term.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's other health risks like growth and development issues. So in adolescence, long-term Adderall use can affect growth and development, and this can result in stunted growth and delayed or disrupted puberty. You also have, we've said a million times, but it is a physical aspect of it, it's sleep disturbances. So the chronic use of it can lead to the persistent insomnia and other sleep-related disorders that, of course, like sleep, we've said it many, many times, especially in all the episodes that we've done about sleep, it's extremely important. Sleep is incredibly important, and it just involves everything. And then physical exhaustion and malnutrition, because due to the increased metabolism and reduced appetite of long-term Adderall abuse, it can lead to significant weight loss, malnutrition, and overall just physical exhaustion. Because if you're not eating right and you're being, how are you going to feel good? It's impossible to feel good, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. So then the science behind why Adderall can be addictive. So we kind of already discussed on dopamine. We have a couple episodes on explaining how dopamine kind of works, but it's a big neurotransmitter hormone that causes a reward effect. So again, Adderall is going to increase dopamine, right? So it's associated with pleasure, movement, attention, okay? It's that feel-good chemical, okay? It's going to contribute to things of satisfaction and your reward, okay? So normally dopamine is released in response to just a normal reward. Okay. So then it's going to get recycled back into the cell and then release it again. And then that's kind of the whole entire process. If you abuse Adderall, then it's going to increase the amount of dopamine. So not only is it just the regular amount of dopamine that you already get released, you're going to secrete more. Okay. And then it's going to slow down the reuptake of it. Okay. And then you're just going to have accumulation of like dopamine in the brain, right? So then that's why you have like this like euphoric, like high feeling, okay? Again, the rewards in the brain. So just because Adderall increases the dopamine levels, the brain can actually start associating the drug with powerful reward or pleasure. So again, it's not just physically what the drug is actually doing, it's mentally. You haven't even taken the drug and you already feel a reward. You know it, it's there, you taste it, you want it. It's the scene for it.
It's an addiction,
Yeah. So the brain can begin to rely on the drug, stimulate the release of, just depending on it, you're like already releasing dopamine. It's like already hitting that reward system.
Yeah.
Okay. So tolerance and dependence. So with your brain will adjust the way that it handles excess dopamine. So what does that mean? You create a tolerance.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Adderall, maybe the dose that you were taking just doesn't hit the same.
Right.
Okay. So you need more. And this is very different from people that are taking it as a prescription.
Right.
Right. Maybe you gained weight. Maybe you need a little bit more. So there's something that could be different in that sense. And I think about it in a pediatric mind where I look a lot at weight and this might not be enough for you and all of that. So I know that in the adult world, it's a little bit different for sure. But again, you do create some tolerance when it comes to these sorts of medications, and maybe what you couldn't handle before, or you talk to someone else that is taking these medications and they tell you a dose and you're like, oh my God, like I would die if I was on that dose, because everyone is so different, you know? But this does mean that higher doses of the drugs are needed to achieve that same effect. So that's why you have that tolerance. The body does adjust to the presence of the drug, so it can become dependent to function normally. But if you suddenly stop, right, then the withdrawal symptoms are gonna start, okay? And then when you have those withdrawal symptoms, then you're already having physical signs of that dependence. So when you develop this psychological dependence, when you have this happen, the drug becomes a way to cope with daily tasks, stress, and other issues. So a person, if they don't have this, they can feel like they can't accomplish their day-to-day activities.
Yeah, totally dependent.
Without this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Risk of misuse. Well, this is kind of the whole entire point, okay, of the abuse part of it.
Yep.
So you're taking it without a prescription. You're taking higher doses, okay? People may not take it the way it's supposed to be taken. So like normally you take this as a pill, okay, or as a solution, depending on what you take it as. But maybe you take it like people snort it, okay? So these are all signs that this could potentially be more just using it because you need it. It's more of like an abuse.
Exactly.
So in summary, the ability to significantly increase dopamine levels in the brain's association of drugs with pleasure and the reward can actually lead to a cycle of misuse and addiction. And the brain's adjustment to the drug can create physical and psychological dependence, making it a challenge to stop using it without professional help.
Yep.
All right. Jules is going to talk about a little bit of like the debunking of the myths behind it.
Because of course, like most of these illicit or abused drug situations, what have you, there are some myths, you know? So first one, ADHD medication dosing is based on an adult's height and weight. The actual fact is that ADHD medication dosing is not related to the adult. Again, it's different for pediatrics, like she had said. For the adult, height or weight, the ideal dosage is identified using a method called titration, which involves carefully increasing the dosage over time until benefits are achieved and the side effects are minimized. This is why it's important to get this prescribed by a physician, you know? Mm-hmm. So another myth, Adderall makes you smarter. The fact, Adderall does not make an individual smarter. It may help those with ADHD focus better. But it does not improve learning or intelligence. In fact, students who misuse prescription stimulants like Adderall may have lower GPAs than those that don't. So that's a very big myth. Like we had said earlier today, unfortunately, it's a big one out there these days. Another myth, Adderall is always legal. Not true. So Adderall is only legal when prescribed by a doctor and used by the person to whom it was prescribed. Using someone else's prescription or distributing Adderall is illegal and unsafe. So, yeah.
Yep.
And then Adderall is not addictive.
It is.
It's the whole point of this episode.
Yeah.
So Adderall can be habit forming and lead to addiction if taken in excess or used without a prescription. It is amphetamine, which is a class of drug that is highly addictive. Another myth, Adderall is only for people with ADD or ADHD. Not true. While Adderall is prescribed for the treatment of ADD/ADHD, it should not be taken by individuals without the condition. Misuse of Adderall can be dangerous and not an appropriate treatment for those without ADHD. And like we had said earlier, it could also be used for narcolepsy.
Yeah.
There are other uses for it, you know? Then Adderall is safe to take at any time. Not true. Adderall should only be taken under the supervision of a doctor. It can have dangerous side effects, as we have talked about, if misused and taken without the prescription. Adderall is an acceptable way to study or stay awake. Guys, not true. Adderall outside a prescribed treatment plan can have serious consequences.
Take some coffee.
Exactly.
Take some coffee.
Celsius, energy drinks, I don't know.
Green tea.
Yes.
Everyone is like taking Adderall. It's like, fuck that
shit. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Adderall is always only prescribed if you need it. So the fact is that ADHD is sometimes overdiagnosed, which is a whole other tangent on its own. Okay. Adderall may be prescribed to individuals who do not actually need it, and this could actually cause to a lead of unnecessary exposure to a potent stimulant. That's a whole other tangent. It's unfortunate, but it is the truth. Like in today's world, it's a little bit overly diagnosed. Adderall does not require addiction treatment. Not true. Adderall can have unpleasant withdrawal effects and detoxing from the drug. Should be done under medical supervision. Addiction treatment may be necessary for long-term recovery. It's going to be just like any other drug that you're going to have to undergo like recovery from it and proper withdrawal, not criteria, but steps, I guess you could say. So Adderall addiction only occurs in teens. Not true. Adderall abuse is increasing most in young adults aged 18 through 25. So not just in teenagers.
And also just not in young adults too. Like that's just the most common.
The most common is in young adults. But
adults can have that too.
Exactly. It's a drug. It's going to affect anybody that takes it. Anyway, Adderall has little resemblance to methamphetamine Not true. The chemical structure of Adderall and amphetamine is similar to that of methamphetamine.
Yeah. So Adderall is an amphetamine.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not talking about methamphetamine. Okay. Right. However, the similarity between both of these is that they're both addictive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Methamphetamine is definitely
more. Yeah, of course. But anyways, of course, both can be dangerous and addictive. Self-medicating with Adderall is safe. Absolutely not true. As we've talked a lot in this episode, Adderall addiction doesn't occur if you are prescribed the drug. That's not true, because even with a prescription, you could become dependent and addicted to it. Stimulants can change your personality. When dosed correctly, stimulants do not change a person's personality, and they help individuals focus and control impulsivity, allowing their inherent personality to shine through.
Yeah.
But if you abuse it or you take it not prescribed, then it may.
Which is why it's important for those that are taking it by prescription to follow up with your doctor just to make sure if it's right for you. Okay.
And to monitor changes.
Exactly. Monitor all those changes. All those things are really important. Yeah, you might have some changes that the doctor will say, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait like 1 to 2 more weeks and see if it gets better. But you might have major changes that the doctor's like, no, that's not supposed to be happening.
Exactly. And then lastly, stimulants are a crutch or a sign of weakness. Not true. So ADHD is a real biologically based disorder. I know that.
And we're just focusing on ADHD in this myth.
Yeah, in this myth in particular. Using medication to manage it is no more of a crutch than using insulin for diabetes, okay? Or a beta blocker for
an arrhythmia. Yeah.
It's the same in that aspect. So stimulants are considered the gold standard for ADHD treatment due to their robust efficacy.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. Happy 50th to us.
Happy 50th. Happiest 50th. Happy 50th. Thank you for joining us on our 50th episode. It's crazy to us that we made it this far.
I know.
And and if you guys have any requests for maybe the 100th or whatever, then let us know. We love doing this. And
we have an ongoing bet that when we get to the 100th Patreon subscriber, so patreon.com/Funny Medicine Podcast, that I will be forced to eat whatever vegan food she gives me. And she's really, really getting very creative with that.
Yeah, jackfruit, pulled pork jackfruit, or like watermelon, like the meat watermelon, dipped in soy.
Oh my God.
Blech.
Oh my God. And I will have to eat it.
And apparently it has that meaty texture.
No. So potentially saying we throw up on camera, in essence, on the 100th Patreon subscriber. So yeah, check us out there. We have a lot of really good episodes anyway there. And thank you for subscribing on YouTube and listening to us on all forms of streaming platforms. Follow us on all forms of social media platforms as well. Instagram, Facebook, name it. We're in pretty much everywhere. And thank you again for everything you guys do. Thank you to you threaders. You thread people are amazing.
Everyone is amazing. We're getting a lot of interactions on Thread, and I think that's what Thread is all about. So thank you guys for always showing up.
Yeah. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Like, comment, review us on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc.
Check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Funny Medicine Podcast. Our Gmail is funnymedicine305@gmail.com. And remember, we are not diagnosing you.
Definitely not. Just funny stuff.
See you later, guys.